and adulation he deserves.
It's like unconquered territory. So.
If we were writing all the same kind of songs, but we're all writing different songs, so it keeps us interested. So that was interesting enough for us to carry on.
On the 9th of August, 1986, Freddie Mercury walked out onto a stage for what would turn out to be the final time. His doctor had already told him that very morning that he should not go on. His throat was inflamed, his voice was fragile, and pushing through a full concert carried real risk. In the crowd that night, a young fan's life would end during one of the show's most emotional songs. And backstage, a bandmate who had spent 15 years staying calm under pressure would lose his temper in a way no one who knew him had ever witnessed. This is the story of Queen's last night together with Freddie Mercury on stage, and everything that happened before, during, and after it. Freddie Mercury was born Farrokh Bulsara on September 5, 1946, on the island of Zanzibar, then a British protectorate off the East African coast. His parents were Parsi, followers of Zoroastrianism, one of humanity's oldest religions. Family legend held that Freddie arrived with 4 extra teeth, and he later joked that the extra space in his mouth was the secret behind his unusually wide 4-octave vocal range. Growing up on Zanzibar meant growing up at a crossroads, African, Arab, and Indian cultures all shaping the world around him, a mix that would eventually surface in his music. Life on the island didn't stay peaceful. In 1964, when Freddie was 17, the Zanzibar Revolution erupted, and the violence turned deadly for families like his. Thousands were killed in the unrest, and the Bulsaras fled to England to escape it. But years before that, when Freddie was just 8, his parents had already sent him away to boarding school in India, St. Peter's School in Panchugni near Mumbai. It was there that Farrokh became Freddie, a nickname that stuck for life. It was also where his musical education truly began. A teacher spotted something special in him and urged his parents to invest in proper music lessons, a decision that would shape everything that followed. At school, 12-year-old Freddie put together his first band, the Hectics, playing rock and roll covers of artists like Cliff Richard and Little Richard. Even that young, his talent was obvious. He was also drawn to the soaring vocals of Bollywood playback singer Lata Mangeshkar, whose influence would later echo through his own performances. That blend, Western rock energy layered with the emotional richness of Indian vocal tradition, became part of what made Freddie, and eventually Queen, sound like nothing else on the radio. When the family resettled in England, they moved into a modest home in Feltham, near London. Money was tight, but Freddie's ambitions weren't. In 1964 he enrolled at Isleworth Polytechnic to study art, later continuing at Ealing Art College, where he sharpened the graphic design skills he'd eventually use to design Queen's now iconic logo himself. To make ends meet, he took whatever work he could find, including a stint washing dishes at Heathrow Airport. It was at Ealing that Freddie crossed paths with Tim Staffel, singer of a band called Smile, which also featured guitarist Brian May and drummer Roger Taylor. Freddie became a fixture around the group, offering opinions and ideas about their sound and shows long before he officially joined them. When Staffel left Smile in 1970, Freddie stepped into the frontman role and pushed for a new name, Queen. He liked that it sounded regal and commanding. Their first show under that name came in June 1970 at a charity event. The lineup still needed a bassist, and after auditioning several candidates, they found John Deacon in 1971. Around that same period, Freddie changed his surname to Mercury, drawing the idea from a line in one of his own songs, "Mother Mercury, look what they've done to me." Success didn't come immediately. Queen's self-titled debut album, released in 1973, barely registered on the UK charts and only reached number 83 in America. Their follow-up, Queen 2, released in 1974, did slightly better but still stalled at number 49 in the UK. The band was growing restless, until their third album, Sheer Heart Attack, changed everything. It contained Killer Queen, the song that gave them their real breakthrough, climbing to number 2 in the UK and number 12 in the US. Freddie wrote Killer Queen in one sitting at the piano, and unusually for him, the lyrics came before the melody. The song told the story of a sophisticated high-society call girl, and its playful, theatrical style set it apart from anything else on rock radio at the time. Brian May's guitar solo, famously played with a British sixpence coin instead of a standard pick, added to its distinctive texture. Ironically, the song that made the band famous nearly didn't make the album. It was recorded last, and there was genuine disagreement within the group about including something so stylistically different. Roger Taylor in particular worried its light, theatrical tone might undercut the band's credibility as a serious rock act. Then came Bohemian Rhapsody, released in 1975 as the centerpiece of A Night at the Opera. It was an enormous gamble. The track took 3 weeks to record, involved roughly 180 separate vocal overdubs, and cost around £40,000 to produce, making it the most expensive single ever recorded at that point. Structurally, it broke every rule: a somber ballad opening, a mock operatic midsection, and a hard rock finale, all inside one song. EMI executives were skeptical it could ever work on radio and pushed the band to trim it down. Queen refused. Instead, their manager slipped an early copy to DJ Kenny Everett, who played it 14 times over a single weekend. Listeners were hooked. The song spent 9 consecutive weeks at #1 in the UK. After Freddie's death in 1991, it returned to the top of the charts for another 5 weeks. In America, it initially peaked at a more modest #9 in 1976, but after being featured in Wayne's World in 1992, it shot back up to #2. It went on to become one of the best-selling singles in UK chart history. Queen also reshaped what a music video could be. The video for Bohemian Rhapsody was shot in just 4 hours for roughly £4,500, yet its simple, striking visual of the 4 band members' faces arranged in a prism, created using a technique known as video feedback, became one of the most recognizable images in music history and helped establish the promotional video as an industry standard. The band kept experimenting visually. The video for I Wanna Break Free saw them dressed in women's clothing, a nod to the British soap opera Coronation Street, playful and daring but banned from American MTV. Radio Gaga, meanwhile, became one of the most expensive videos of its era, costing around £100,000, partly because Queen paid that sum just to license footage from the 1927 film Metropolis. Their live shows matched that ambition. During the 1975 A Night at the Opera tour, the band toured with a massive lighting setup: 168 lights and 12 aircraft landing lights, powerful enough to need its own dedicated generator. By the time of their legendary 1986 Wembley shows, that rig had grown to more than 1,000 lights, including a 5-ton crown-shaped lighting structure suspended above the stage. Freddie's presence on stage evolved just as dramatically. In Queen's earliest days, he was noticeably shy, often sheltering behind his piano. The image most fans associate with him now, holding a broken microphone stand missing its lower half, actually began as an accident. The stand snapped during one performance and Freddie found he liked the freedom it gave him, so he kept using it that way from then on. His look kept evolving too. In 1973 he began painting his nails black, inspired by Jimi Hendrix, and started wearing extravagant glam rock costumes designed by Zandra Rhodes. In 1976, Freddie debuted his now famous Harlequin jumpsuit, a costume so tight-fitting it had to be sewn onto his body before every performance. By the 1980s, his image transformed again. He grew a thick mustache, cropped his hair, and adopted a leaner, more masculine look built around leather trousers and military-style jackets, an aesthetic influenced by New York's gay club scene. That new look created a strange collision in the I Wanna Break Free video, where Freddie appeared in drag while still sporting his mustache, a juxtaposition that puzzled some viewers and stirred controversy at the time. His stage antics grew bolder as the years went on. During the 1982 Hot Space Tour, he rode out on the shoulders of a crew member dressed as Darth Vader while performing We Will Rock You. During a show in Japan, he gradually stripped down to just a pair of shorts as the performance progressed. The early 1980s brought both creative risk and internal tension. The 1982 album Hot Space pushed the band toward disco and funk, a direction championed mainly by Freddie and John Deacon, but it alienated a portion of their fanbase. The single Body Language, along with its video, was considered too provocative for the era and was banned by MTV, further fueling the backlash. In 1985, Freddie released his debut solo album, Mr. Bad Guy, the product of 2 years of meticulous work in Munich. The record leaned heavily into dance and synthesizer-driven production, showcasing a different side of his artistry. He dedicated the album half-jokingly to his cats, Jerry, Tom, Oscar, and Tiffany, and all the cat lovers in the universe. Screw everybody else. It cracked the UK top 10 but underperformed in the United States. Still, it gave him confidence to keep exploring music outside of Queen. In 1987 he collaborated with opera singer Montserrat Cabal on the album Barcelona. Its title track, blending opera with rock, became the anthem of the 1992 Barcelona Olympics, though Freddie did not live to see that moment. While Freddie explored solo work, Queen itself was fraying. After the Hot Space Tour wrapped in late 1982, the band took a break, worn down by internal friction. Brian May later admitted plainly that for a stretch, the members simply couldn't stand each other. Tensions boiled over again during the 1984 recording of the works, when Brian, frustrated beyond his limit, walked out of the studio and spent hours alone in a park contemplating quitting the band altogether. John Deacon, without warning anyone, disappeared to Bali for a break, a move that stunned his bandmates. When Freddie found out, he responded with characteristic humor, breaking into a chorus of Bali Hai from South Pacific. Controversy followed them outside the studio too. In 1984, Queen performed a string of shows in Sun City, South Africa, during the height of apartheid. The decision drew sharp criticism. The musicians' union banned the group, and the United Nations condemned the visit. The backlash lingered. At a 1985 concert in Rio de Janeiro, the band was actually booed by parts of the crowd. On top of the professional strain, Freddie's personal life added more chaos. His manager at the time, Paul Prenter, caused friction within the group serious enough that Brian May avoided naming him directly in interviews for years afterward, referring to him only as the guy who looked after Fred. Then, on July 13, 1985, everything shifted. Queen took the stage at Live Aid. Freddie wasn't feeling well and was already struggling with his voice, but he performed anyway. Taking the stage at 6:41 p.m., the band delivered what is widely regarded as one of the greatest live sets in rock history, a 20-minute run through Bohemian Rhapsody, Radio Gaga, and We Are the Champions, among others. During Radio Gaga, Freddie led the entire stadium in a synchronized clap that became one of the defining images of the concert. An estimated 1.9 billion people watched the broadcast worldwide. Backstage, Elton John reportedly told the band, "You bastards, you stole the show." The performance revived Queen's career almost overnight and pulled the band back together with renewed purpose. Riding that momentum, Queen began work on a kind of magic, conceived largely as the soundtrack to the film Highlander, a story built around themes of immortality. Recording began in 1985 using new digital production techniques to give the album a more modern sound. The title track borrowed a line directly from the film, though Freddie reworked it in ways that reportedly irritated Roger Taylor. Another standout, Who Wants to Live Forever, was written by Brian May after watching a pivotal scene from the movie. The finished track featured an 80-piece orchestra, giving it a sweeping, cinematic weight. In 1986, the band planned their most ambitious tour to date, the Magic Tour, 26 shows across 9 countries in just 8 weeks. The staging was enormous, a set 160 feet wide with 2 long walkways stretching into the crowd, among the largest concert stages built up to that point, requiring more than 8 miles of cable to power. The video screen alone stood 20 feet tall and needed its own generator. The sound system was so powerful that residents in villages miles from the venues complained about the noise. On August 9, 1986, Freddie Mercury stepped onto the stage at Knebworth Park at 6:41 p.m. He had no idea this would be his final live performance with Queen. Roughly 120,000 people had gathered, and the atmosphere was electric from the first chords of One Vision. Freddie appeared in his now iconic white tank top and tight jeans, radiating confidence, but his health told a different story. That very morning, his doctor had examined his inflamed throat and warned him against performing at all. Freddie ignored the warning, unwilling to disappoint the crowd that had come to see him. As he sang One Man, One Goal, One Mission, his voice audibly cracked, though the audience barely seemed to notice or care. Behind the scenes, the band had quietly prepared a scaled-back backup setlist in case Freddie couldn't handle the more demanding songs. He proved them unnecessary, determined to give the crowd everything he had. During Under Pressure, his voice broke on a high note. Rather than backing off, he simply turned the moment over to the audience, having them finish the line, transforming a vocal limitation into one of the night's most memorable moments. At 8:03 p.m., the band launched into Who Wants to Live Forever, and it landed with unusual emotional weight, the lyrics seeming in hindsight to speak directly to Freddie's own circumstances. Bohemian Rhapsody followed at 8:17 p.m. Despite it being one of the most demanding songs in their catalog, Freddie pushed through the operatic middle section live, something usually left to a pre-recorded track, hitting a note he hadn't attempted on stage in years. The crowd's reaction was overwhelming. The night closed with We Are the Champions. Once again his voice cracked, and once again he refused to pull back, holding the note out even longer than usual. The roar from the crowd was reportedly audible in nearby villages. At 8:59 p.m., the band played God Save the Queen, a song that typically signaled their exit from the stage. This time Freddie stayed. He stood motionless, eyes closed, taking in the final notes. When the music ended, he bowed deeply and offered a simple farewell. "Thank you, lovely people. Good night and sweet dreams." It was 9:02 p.m. Freddie Mercury had just given his final live performance, though almost no one in that stadium realized it yet. Behind the scenes that night, something unusual was unfolding. John Deacon, the band's quietest and most even-tempered member, reportedly threw his bass across the dressing room roughly 18 minutes before the show, narrowly missing Roger Taylor's drum technician. Those close to the band said they'd never seen Deacon behave that way in his 15 years with Queen. He is said to have told Brian May, "I can't do this anymore, it's too much," as though some part of him already sensed this might be the group's final show with Freddie. He also reportedly clashed with the sound engineer over his bass levels before going on. Despite the visible frustration, Deacon delivered what many considered one of his strongest performances once he stepped on stage. The night carried tragedy as well. A 23-year-old fan named Michael Jennings, standing about 50 meters from the stage, collapsed during "Who Wants to Live Forever." Medics responded quickly, but he could not be saved and was pronounced dead at 9:43 p.m., while the band was still performing Bohemian Rhapsody. Queen didn't learn of his death until after the show ended. Jennings reportedly had an undiagnosed heart condition, and the intensity of the concert combined with the sheer size of the 120,000-strong crowd is believed to have contributed to his collapse. He had won his ticket through a radio contest just 2 days earlier. A friend who was with him that night said he'd spent the whole evening saying it was the best night of his life. The tragedy would later contribute to stricter safety standards at large-scale concerts. After the final song, Freddie left the stage unusually fast, a departure from his usual habit of lingering to celebrate with the crew. His longtime assistant, Peter Freestone, later explained that Freddie had received a call from his doctor before the show regarding his health, news that appeared to weigh on him heavily alongside the physical toll of the performance itself. In the rush to leave, he even left behind a silver bracelet he had worn at every show since 1977. A cleaner found it afterward and it was returned to him. On the drive back to London, Freddie reportedly sat in silence, staring out the window, occasionally dabbing at his eyes. Backstage, in a quiet moment, he is said to have turned to Peter Freestone and admitted, "I don't know if I can do this." Roger Taylor later recalled finding Freddie alone in the dressing room afterward, looking up and saying simply, "Darling, I think I've given it my all." At the time, Roger assumed exhaustion. Looking back, he came to believe it was something closer to a goodbye. He has kept a drumstick from that night as a memento. John Deacon, who withdrew almost entirely from public life in later years, described the show as the hardest performance of his career, and admitted he cried during "These Are the Days of Our Lives," sensing it might be the last time the four of them played together. For the whole band, that night carried the unmistakable feeling of an ending. Freddie's personal life was layered with deep, complicated relationships. Perhaps none mattered more than his bond with Mary Austin. He met her in 1969, when he was 24 and she was 19. They fell in love quickly, moved in together, and eventually got engaged. In 1976, Freddie told her he believed he was bisexual. Mary, in her characteristically direct and compassionate way, responded, "No, Freddie, I think you're gay." That conversation reshaped their romance into something else entirely, but their closeness never faded. Freddie often said Mary was the one true friend of his life, irreplaceable. Even after their romantic relationship ended, he continued to care for her, buying her a flat in Kensington in 1980, close to his own home. In his will, he left her half of his fortune, including his mansion. She remained by his side as his health declined and, after his death, kept the location of his ashes a closely guarded secret, exactly as he had wished. Freddie's romantic life extended beyond Mary. In 1985, he met hairdresser Jim Hutton, who became his partner and remained with him until his death in 1991. At the same time, Freddie maintained a close relationship with Austrian actress Barbara Valentin, and the three of them were known to spend time together socially, a reflection of how genuinely unconventional and overlapping his personal connections could be. His relationship with his own sexuality and public image was shaped by the era he lived in. Born in 1946, Freddie came of age at a time when homosexuality was still criminalized in much of the world. Though he recognized his attraction to men from a young age, he learned early to obscure it publicly. When journalists pressed him on the subject, he would often deflect with humor, once famously describing himself as gay as a daffodil, a way of acknowledging the truth playfully while still keeping it at arm's length. Freddie's identity extended well beyond music. Trained in art and design, he was a genuine collector and connoisseur, amassing works by Picasso and Dali, along with Japanese woodblock prints and rare antique glassware. He even commissioned formal portraits of his cats. His mansion became something of a personal gallery, filled with objects that reflected a deep, lifelong appreciation for beauty and craft. Freddie kept his battle with AIDS private for years, hidden from the public and even from many people close to him. He was formally diagnosed with HIV in April 1987, though some symptoms may have surfaced earlier. During a 1982 trip to New York, he sought medical attention for a spot on his tongue that may have been an early warning sign. Even so, he consistently denied rumors about his health as they began to circulate. The press made privacy difficult. By 1986, British tabloids, The Sun in particular, were running speculative stories about his health. Combined with the intense stigma surrounding AIDS at the time, that scrutiny likely reinforced his decision to stay silent. Even within Queen, the subject was rarely discussed directly. Brian May later explained that the band avoided asking questions because Freddie clearly didn't want them to. Only a small circle close to him knew the full truth. His assistant, Peter Freestone, later said Freddie had watched many friends die from AIDS and carried that weight with him constantly, often turning to his cats for comfort in a way he didn't always turn to people. Just one day before his death, Freddie released a public statement explaining his years of silence, aware that his increasingly thin and frail appearance had already fueled public speculation. On November 23, 1991, he confirmed publicly that he had AIDS. He died the following day, November 24, at the age of 45. The official cause of death was bronchopneumonia brought on by AIDS. His partner, Jim Hutton, described his final moments as peaceful, saying Freddie appeared calm before he passed. Even as his health deteriorated, Freddie kept working. In 1990, Queen recorded the album Innuendo, adjusting their schedule around his condition. 3 weeks of recording followed by 2 weeks of rest so he could recover. Brian May later said doctors had told the band Freddie's time was limited, yet he continued pushing himself in the studio. One song from that era, The Show Must Go On, became emblematic of that determination. May reportedly doubted Freddie had the vocal strength left to record it convincingly. Freddie responded by drinking a shot of vodka, declaring, "I'll do it, darling," and delivering the vocal in a single take. He kept recording even after Innuendo was finished. In May 1991 he began work on Mother Love, but wasn't able to complete it. His final recording session took place on May 22, 1991, when he laid down vocals for A Winter's Tale, later released on the posthumous album Made in Heaven. Even facing a terminal illness, Freddie continued working to leave behind music that would outlast him. His last public appearance came on February 18, 1990, at the Brit Awards, where Queen received the award for Outstanding Contribution to British Music. Freddie's noticeably thin, tired appearance shocked many in attendance, but he showed up regardless, out of respect for his bandmates and fans. Brian May delivered most of the acceptance speech that night. Freddie's own words were brief, simply, "Thank you, good night." His final public statement, understated but unmistakably final in hindsight. By June 1991, Freddie's health had declined sharply, and he remained mostly at his home in Kensington, West London. Close friends, including Mary Austin, visited regularly to offer support during his final months. On November 22, 1991, he stopped taking all medication except for pain relief. That same day he worked with Queen's manager, Jim Beach, to prepare the public statement confirming his diagnosis, which was released the following day. He died on November 24, 1991. After his death, Freddie Mercury's music only grew in stature. In 1995, Queen released Made in Heaven, built around his final recordings, and it went on to sell more than 20 million copies worldwide. Today his catalog continues to rack up billions of streams, and Queen's Greatest Hits remains the best-selling album in UK chart history. More than 3 decades after that final night at Knebworth, Freddie Mercury's voice, and the sheer force of personality behind it, continues to reach new generations of listeners around the world.